So those of you, it's your first time, let's see your hand again real quick. All right, a lot of you. And those of you who live here, let's see your hand as well. Okay, good. A good crew here. It's my first time to Charleston, and I thought it was pretty fun. Last night I went out. I took pictures everywhere. I met George Washington. You can find him in a park down the street. So I went to all the buildings. It's a gorgeous city, a cool place to spend a nice steamy May. I'm from Los Angeles, so this is steamy, but I've learned that everyone's in a good mood because it's so lovely here. But I'm schwitzing a bit. I also decided that it would be fun that Jenny, who's been keeping us on track, also let us know that this is called the Holy City. So I thought if I'm in the Holy City, I better take some pictures with some churches. I took more, but my hair was in the way, and so I couldn't see those ones. But the most important question when you come to Charleston, or when you come to a great city like this, is where should I eat? So I did what everybody does when they wonder where they should eat. I asked other people. I went to Google, and I said, Google, where are the best restaurants in Charleston? Where should I go to eat? And Google gave me a bunch of things. And then I didn't trust Google. I wanted a personal touch, so I did the next thing we all do, which is I went to Facebook. I also made the video for you guys. Anybody get that? Yeah, somebody told me they did. I remember you. Mercedes did. You win. So I asked a bunch of people on Facebook, and they told me ideas, and then they started sending me private ideas of like, that friend of yours is wrong. That's not the place to go. You've got to go to this place. And everybody felt very strongly about where I should eat in Charleston last night. I found my way over to Husk. Anybody been to Husk? Good place, right? I found my way there. I found my way to Pearls. And in case you don't believe those are real pictures, these are my glasses that are in the picture. I didn't steal anybody's photo. I did a real deal. And then, of course, we're all here for Collaborate. So the idea is we came together to learn, to get ideas. I saw my friends here from Salt Lake City making a list of who was going to go to this one, who's going to go there, how are we going to get the intel and bring it back together. That's a good way to divide and conquer, ladies. I like that, a mission. But we're here to think about something different, right? And just like I Googled when I wanted to figure out where I should eat and ask people on Facebook, we also come to events because we want to learn something, because we say there's a lot of changes going on in the people space, and I need to keep up. We want inspiration. We want to learn how to avoid some of the perspiration, and we want to share ideas with our peers, and that's why we're here. So to Collaborate, and to Jenny specifically for getting us organized, let's give a little hand. Thank you very much. Maybe the only person in the room with bigger hair than me, I think, is Jenny. Jenny back there. So we're going to talk about Culture Kitchen. We're going to talk about what you can do to cook up a great brand. And like Kenny said, I've spent a lot of time in restaurants, so I think in recipes pretty much all the time. And I love recipes, because recipes make it easy to repeat something, right? You have a favorite dish from grandma, grandma passes down the recipe, and now you can get close to recreating the same thing. So I love recipes, and I always think in recipes. When you think about culture, when you think about where am I going to go to get information, you could do what I did when I wanted to know where to eat in Charleston, which the first thing I did was go to Google, right? And if you wanted to learn how to build a great company culture, you could read 78 million pages, nearly 79 million pages. That is a long weekend surfing session on the internet. It's going to be a long time. It's for me. Tell them I'm busy. Unless it's Oprah, then I'm free, always. So, company culture, you could do that. You could read that. That's a lot of stuff to read, a lot of information. I don't know how to get through it. I like visual, right? I like video, and I like to see people teach me things. So I also might go to YouTube. And on YouTube, I would see nearly 3 million hits, which, anybody watch Breaking Bad? Yeah, a couple of you watch Breaking Bad. Even a long binge-watching session of Breaking Bad's can't compete with that. That's pretty serious stuff. So there's a lot of places, and nobody is shy to tell you the 5 habits, the 7 steps, the 9 hacks, the 11 essentials, the 13 top tips that you need to follow so that you don't fail. And yet there's all this information out there, and we keep searching and searching and searching. And that's not new, right? And it's also not specific to any sect of people. Trust me, we've made a lot of hair jokes this morning, but it takes me a lot of time in the morning. And if you could look up how to get your hair to stand up this tall and send me those 3 steps, it would make it a lot quicker for me to get to the airport each time. But we keep looking. We think if we do what they do, we can have what they have. We look up the big brands and we think, oh, I've heard about Shake Shack. That's a cool place to be. Or Apple, or Google, or Facebook. And then we all think, let's get a ping pong table and then everything will be great. We'll all have a great workplace. But that's not how it works. That's not how we get things done. And that's not new. One of my favorite stories about thinking we can have what they have if we just do what they do came all the way back from World War II. And in World War II, Japan and the United States were I got the directions right. Sometimes I struggle with, where were they? Japan and the United States were fighting a war in the Pacific, right? We entered that war after Pearl Harbor. And Japan was very, very thoughtful and said, we're going to put a bunch of islands. We're going to add bases to these islands. In Micronesia, Melanesia, South Pacific, we're going to put temporary operations so we could keep the U.S. from getting to the mainland. And the U.S., not to be outdone, said, we're the U.S., we're going to do it too. We want some islands. And so they put a bunch of temporary operations on these islands, and everybody was good. And what they didn't think about in either place was who was there before, who lived on these islands. And so up far, back in the trees, away from the ports where they were building and the places they were dropping, there were native islanders who had lived there forever and had never seen anything like this modern warfare going on. To them, there were these huge metal birds that dropped things from the sky, and inside of that was all this great stuff. Food you didn't have to chase, water you didn't have to source, this other drink that when you drank it, it made you a little bit goofy, right? I'm going to see some of you later upstairs doing that one. So they watched from afar because they were scared and they didn't know what it was. It'd be like right now if all of a sudden a huge alien ship ripped the roof off of here and then had all this cool stuff that we're like, what do we do with that? But then you watch the cool stuff and you think, well, they eat whatever they want, this alien people, and they all stay pretty fit. I would like a little bit of that. So we want what they have. So eventually the islanders came down and they made friends. They said, okay, we'll figure out how to make this work. And they started enjoying all of the things. The food you didn't have to chase, the water you didn't have to source, the clothes that kept you protected, and even a little bit of that fun drink. They got all of those things. And all they had to do was show the soldiers around the island and keep them safe, where they could hide things and where good spots were for all their infantry equipment. The war ended, which we know. And after the war, the harbors got taken away, the landing strips were broken up, the metal birds dropping things out of the sky with magic inside of it stopped coming around. But what the islanders thought was, oh, wait a second, they're gone. We don't have to share anything with them anymore. We can have all the stuff that they had. So they waited, and they watched, and they watched. They looked at the sea. No big metal whale was coming with anything. Nothing came from the sky. And so they got around and they said, okay, well, wait a second. What made that happen? Why did all of that stuff come? Why did the gods give them this gift? And then they thought the most logical thing, which is, oh, we have to do what they do. We just have to copy the rituals that they did, and then we'll have what they had. So they collected a bunch of the clothes, and they built these crude uniforms. They fixed up the runways. They built airplanes out of wood. They made fake watchtowers, and every day they replayed the rituals that they had seen the soldiers do. Every single day. So we realized that the stuff never came. That wasn't what made it show up in the first place. And it's easy to think about that, right? And to think, well, the people on the island just didn't know what we know today. We know so much more. That's not why things happen for you. And yet, we look at big brands and we try to copy what they copy. We heard, ooh, someone has a mission statement that's pretty cool. So if we should just have a mission statement, we'll be equally as cool. And somebody told me about some core values. So I'm going to copy those core values. Maybe we'll change integrity to honesty. No one's going to know the difference. And it'll all work out, right? We'll borrow things that Chipotle did. We'll see what Hyatt, what Kimpton are doing. We'll look at the big brands and we'll say, if we could just do what they do, then we can have what they have. But that's not how it works. So let's talk about why culture matters before we talk about a different way to do it. 70% of the 154 million people that go to work every day are unhappy, disengaged, something like that. That's a lot of people. every day. And we're interacting with each other every day. We're interacting with them at work, and that's happening all around us. And we're trying so hard. You know, this group of leaders in here, charged with HR, with operations, in these leadership roles, we're trying to figure out, how do I crack the code? Maybe we do need that ping pong table after all. It's costing us something like $300 billion in lost productivity every year. I'd like a chunk of that. Would you like some of that? She would like some of that too. So what happened? Anytime you can bring dogs or babies, it's a good thing. People like it. What happens when people are unhappy and disengaged? We have customer service issues, right? People don't come back. They don't want to be around us. They don't like interacting with us. We write tersely worded memos, and we have policies about customer service and the rules of service, and yet it's not happening, right? We see lack of initiative in the team. We want creative people. So let's fire all the uncreative people and bring in the creative ones to me, right? We see turnover going up, which is costing us so much money. In a lot of the industries that we're in, it's over 100%. And I think the average hourly person is something like $2,000 to replace them for turnover, something like that. I see you shaking. What's your name? Susan. She knows her stuff over here, everybody. Thanks, Susan. I'll give you the 20. Who told you? Oh, People Matter. Yeah, we love them. I heard they're a cool place. We see top-line revenue loss, right? Obviously, if customers aren't happy, they're not coming back, they're not visiting us, they're not thinking of us, they're not talking about us, we see top-line revenue go away. We see bottom-line revenue go away because we're losing a ton of people, so we're spending all this money, like Susan told us, retraining the same position over and over and over. And that doesn't even count the ping pong tables. They're expensive. We see our brand get weakened. We think of brand a lot. Anybody in marketing here? Anybody? No one's in marketing, so we'll make fun of them. So we see, I have to watch the crowd sometimes. When I never make fun of you, though, just so you know. Only them. We see the brands get weakened. We have logos, and we have fonts, and we have websites, and we do fun videos, and we do all of this, and it doesn't matter if when someone walks in, that's not what they get, right? We make it really hard to smile like you mean it. I borrowed this little face from you guys. We also have long-term success issues. So we've got those short-term issues, but long-term ones. Here's what investors say. This is from Stanford Associates, which polls investors all the time. 66% of people say they have knowledge of the dilution of the value of a company because of culture. It's a big number. We see that quite a few of them in the orange and the purple actually say culture is one of the big drivers in their investing decisions. That when they do their work to decide where to put their money, how your team feels about work and how they show up matters to them. If there's not a better plea to prove that people matter, I don't know what is. Culture matters. So what is culture, right? There's all kinds of ideas about what culture is and what it isn't, what you can see and what you can't. Sometimes we think it's things like the environment. It's the environment we're in, right? It's the space, it's how we feel, it's if there's good ergonomics around, if we can move quickly, those kinds of things. We think it's the behaviors, how the team acts, what we do, how we treat each other, all the things you could see and take a picture of. We think it's that. We think it's how we do things around here. That's one of the ones I hear a lot, is that it's how we do things around here. That's culture. It's all of those. It's also these two things, the values and attitudes. It's also the beliefs that we have as leaders and as team. And the things above the line are all the things you can see. You can see the environment. You can see the way people behave around here. What you can't see are the beliefs. What you can't see are the values and attitudes. And that's the thing that we have to figure out how to get serious about. Culture to me is like a dinner party. Have you ever been to a dinner party and you walk in and you think, this is not a dinner party I want to be at? These people are not. He's like, yes, I have. Jeff knows over here. He knows. That was like the most knowing nod I've seen in a while. So, why is that? Maybe there were some behaviors you could see. Maybe there was, maybe there's a food you didn't like or something. But it's usually a feeling, right? Was it a feeling, Jeff? It was a feeling. Another knowing nod from Jeff. Culture is kind of like that. There's a lot of things that go into it, right? You get to choose the candles on the table, the plates we're going to use. You're going to choose the wine, the food, the drinks. You get to pick who's invited and who's not. But at the end of the day, it's a feeling that's created together. And you can just put some of the elements there. And there's all kinds of different dinner parties, right? There's fancy dinner parties, there's casual parties, there's all kinds. And yet a lot of times, we're not super specific about what we want. So I think this is what we do. Here's some recipes. You guys ready for some recipes? Y'all got pens, you got paper, you've got I said y'all. Is that what we do here? Did I do good? Do I get my passport? My Charleston passport. That's good. So you've all got things, you could write them down. And then at the end too, and I think you'll be able to get all the slides so you can go back and relish in the ones that mean something. Because you decided what you wanted to work on this year. And I don't know what that was. So you're going to grab what you need later. So does anyone know what this word means? This little saying? Susan knows everything. Yeah, mise en place. So if you went down to the French Quarter over here in Charleston, and if you haven't, it's a pretty cool place. Mercedes and Kate, Lindsay, you should go. It's pretty cool. I was over there last night taking selfies for you. And it means put in place. It's a French culinary term. And it basically means before you start cooking, you get all your stuff together, right? So if culture is a dinner party and you're the one putting it together, mise en place basically means you get your things in place, put in place. Thank you, Susan. I'm going to get your number later, and I'll text you when I have questions. I love her. I've known her for many years. No, I haven't. So you got to have all your stuff together. You got to have your things organized and put together. That was like the most organized kitchen I've ever been in. It was in Seattle, Washington. And anyone from Seattle? Yes, you're the only one. Is the only one? Welcome from Seattle, representing. No, okay, later. Yeah. Okay. We'll say, I don't know what that meant either. She's befuddled. All right. When I first met my spouse, who is a chef, I'm very competitive. And I had worked in the restaurant industry since I was 15, but never really in the kitchen except at Pizza Hut. So I'd never done a lot of knife skill things. I met you earlier from Pizza Hut. You drove very far to be here. I can't remember your name. Dorothy, yes. Yes, you came very far, like the Wizard of Oz, I remember now. So I wanted to be able to cook that same way. I wanted to have that all together. And so what did I do? I didn't Google it because that was a long time ago before Google. So I got a cookbook, and I slowly worked my way through it. And there's two things when we think about culture, when we think about brands. When we think about building something, there's really two places where you need to focus on mise en place, putting things in their place. The first is how you manage yourself, and the second is how you serve the team. Today we're going to talk about how to serve the team in specifics, but I encourage you to also ask yourself how you're doing with self-management, with your energy, and how you show up every day, what you bring with you. When you go to a meeting, how are you showing up? So today we're going to talk about how to serve the team. When I was 21, I worked at Potbelly's Sandwich Shop, and it was back when they only had 7 locations, but they had a whole pot full of money that I don't know if they got it from the Emerald City, Dorothy, I'm not sure, but they had a whole pot of money and they were getting to grow really, really big. And so I joined at the right time. I went to work. I didn't know how to be anything but like bubbly, so I just went to work. I had no idea what I was doing as a manager. And so I kept getting promoted, and I thought, this is really awesome. I was like an assistant manager. I got promoted to the next level. I got promoted to the next level, and I just kept going. And no one really ever stopped to say, hey, let me teach you how to do this thing that you're trying to do. So one day, I had been there about 3 years, and I was in charge of the new store opening team. So I was traveling around opening restaurants with them all over the country. And we had this traveling group of hourly trainers with us. And there was one woman in specific who had worked with us for about 6 months on the road. So this is someone that I'm like dining in foreign cities like Dallas and Ann Arbor, Michigan, places I had never been. As like a little dishwasher from the middle of Arizona. I had never been to these places. And so I was traveling all over with these people. We're staying in hotels and we're dining at exotic places like Cafe Rio. That was one spot. So 5 months in, 6 months in, I remember I sat down with her because I saw her doing this training that was really cool. And she was a farm girl from Wisconsin. So she'd always lived in Wisconsin. She grew up on a dairy farm, homeschooled and everything. But when she would teach people, when she would train people, Susan, she had this way that was just so quirky and real. She talked about when you take the sandwich out of the oven, you fold it over and give it a little smack like a baby pig, right? So it was like, what is she talking about? But everybody remembered it. You would go back 6 months later and people would be like, when the bread comes out, you smack it on the bottom like a baby pig. And it was like, where did that come? Nobody knew where it came from. But everyone in the company was talking about this thing. And so I remember I thought, I should tell her 6 months in. I should tell her that that's really cool. That I like that her little quirky way of teaching things makes people remember it. So I sat down with her. We were in Michigan, actually. I remember this. We were in the Ren Center where GM had their big office in Detroit. And I sat down with her and I said, hey, I just wanted to tell you I love the way you teach. I love this very specific thing you do. I was back in another city and I heard them talking about the baby pig thing. And I heard the way you taught about cutting the cheese on the slicer. All of those things people remember and love. And she was like, oh, thanks. And something was wrong. And I said, well, what's wrong? What's going on? And she started to cry. And I thought, great. I try to do something nice and I make her cry. And it was like one of those ugly cries. It wasn't like oh, I'm touched cry. It was like a down in the depths of the soul kind of cry. So I thought, well, what's going on? What happened? And she said to me this. And I still remember this. This is 13 years ago. She said, I was going to tell you tomorrow, which was the last day of the opening, that I didn't want to be on the training team anymore. And I said, why? Because she loved traveling as much as I did. Because while I was from Arizona in the middle of nowhere, she was from Wisconsin in the middle of nowhere. So we got to see the world, right? And she said to me, I didn't think I was very good. And I didn't know what to say, but I remember looking at her and thinking, I think you're the best person of all 8 trainers. And I remember that moment thinking, this is my fault. And it was. I hadn't taken time to figure out what she needed from me. See, I'd gotten promoted over and over and over. For what I didn't know, I just showed up and I was like myself as much as I could be, and it kept working. So I just kept working it. If you got a thing, work it. So I realized in that moment that my job was not about being the star. It wasn't about having the answers. It wasn't about teaching the answers. It was about how I served everybody else on the team. It was about asking what they needed from me and how I hadn't done that for this person. She now owns her own chocolate shop, by the way, in Chicago, and is doing really well. So it worked out for her. So the recipe for service leadership. I told you in the beginning I like recipes because you can write them down and repeat them. You don't have to write this down. We'll make it easy for you to get later. Or you could write it down. If you like to write, feel free. But the recipe for service leadership, this is just a little reminder so we know what to repeat and what not to repeat. The first thing that we have to do is focus on how to, my little timer stopped working, so how to be able to inspire people, how to give direction to them. What's a vision that they know where we're headed? The next thing is about being able to give great service to the team. About asking the things that you require of them to do for other people, how are you doing that for them? If you have a recipe or the steps of service, what are you doing in regards to giving that to them as well? Managing to the values. We often think of managing ethically as like following the rules of law, or as the HR department, the rules that you tell people they should follow. But managing to the values you say are important in the beginning is the number one thing we have to look for. Being a really good coach. Focusing on how can you help other people do great work versus telling them just what needs to get done. Helping others succeed on their terms. How often do we stop? This is one of the things that was amazing to me when I talked to her, and I said, well, what do you actually want to do? And it was the first time I ever asked her that. And you think about it, how often do we in our groups, in our teams, do we sit and talk to the other people to say, what do you really want? What are you looking to do? When you're working with the team to help recruit people, how do you help the managers figure out where this person wants their career to go? And then help them get that thing. And the last thing is creating appreciation all around you. So creating a place where everybody is feeling very appreciative, where everybody knows exactly how to help each other out, how to applaud each other, and giving that away liberally. It's always funny to me when we say, I don't want to give too much applause because I don't want them to think you're doing a really good job. But that's exactly what we want them to think when they are doing that. So these 6 recipes are the 6 things I know work really well. These are the 6 things that it takes to create a culture where everybody wants to be part of, where all of your competition is saying, how do I compete with what they're doing? What is the secret sauce? Where the rest of the people out there, we're all fighting for talent. I heard that a lot in talking with people today. We're fighting to get great people, making a world where they all want to be part of it, where they all want to be part of what we're doing. And then finally creating a life that you want to live. A place where you say, I'm actually enjoying what I'm doing every day. I'm getting to help people. I'm getting to serve the organization in the highest way I know how, because I'm doing these 6 things. Now think about this. If I were to ask you, if you take flour, water, the secret's here, flour, water, yeast, all of that, put it together and bake it, what do you get? Bread. Yeah. If you take all that stuff together and steam it, what do you get? Bao. Did you say bao? Pork bun. That works. No, it's good. It's called a bao, right? If you take those same things and put them together, you get a dumpling. It's not about the stuff you put in, right? It's not about hiring more creative people, hiring friendlier people, hiring leaders that really know how to inspire. It's not about the things you put in all the time. Sometimes it's about the conditions you set. If you rolled it out, you get pizza. And if you microwave it, this is the thing my mom learned recently, if you microwave all that with food coloring, you get Play-Doh. We didn't know how to do that when I was little. So the story here is when you go back, when you think about the next 3 days, you all have the agenda. My friends from Salt Lake, we're looking at it, we're dividing it up. When you look at it, maybe when you get back to your room, no matter how many mint juleps you've had tonight, you look at it and you say, what is my intention for being here this week? There's great stuff going on. The book is full of things. I'm actually sticking around for a few days because I want to hear all of the things going on. So I encourage you tonight, when you think about going back to your own culture kitchen, when you think about going back and cooking up a good brand, whether that's on your individual team, the organization as a whole, whatever you're in charge of, the person sitting next to you, what do you want to create? And what do you need to get out of the next 3 days to make that happen? It's easy to go to these things, to go back and say, well, I got out of the office for 3 days, I got to travel. But set your attention tonight about what you want to get from this evening.